not quantity. And so I do. For those of you who are not familiar with the Interfaith Hunger Coalition, we've been in existence for about, going on more than 6-7 years. And our organization tries to bring together different faith communities as well as agencies to address hunger in New Mexico. And we come from a faith perspective, from different faith traditions. And so we certainly we're pleased to be playing this role. Just a few housekeeping things. For questions, I ask you to do it one or two ways. Either write it in the chat and we'll read it later, or hold off until all the speakers have finished, are done after the end of the panel. We left about 15 to 20 minutes for question and answers. I see most of you have already muted yourselves, and we certainly appreciate that. As you can see, the program is being recorded. I just want to mention a couple of things about upcoming events. The Interfaith Hunger Coalition is going to have an in-person meeting, finally, yay, on May 18th at noon at Kids Cook. And I see Sarah Robbins is here. She's the executive director of Kids Cook, and we will be convening at Kids Cook. You'll find more in your inbox later. We'll send out an email, but Kids Cook is on Osuna, 5838 Osuna. So watch your mailbox. And finally, this program, we are pleased to focus the program on the Universal Meals Initiative that Senator Padilla and Senator Jaramillo sponsored, and we are so pleased that they are here. But there'll be a briefing on a broader array of hunger initiatives tomorrow from 2 to 4. I put the link in the chat, the Zoom link in the chat. And I want to also turn it over to Pam Roy, who will be moderating today's event. And then I'll take care of reading the questions on the question and answers. So Pam, take it away.
Thanks, Carlos. Thanks so much for the invitation to be here and to participate with you all today. And my name is Pam Roy. I'm Executive Director of Farm to Table, a nonprofit based in Santa Fe, but we do statewide and regional work. And I also help to coordinate the New Mexico Food and Agriculture Policy Council. So we have the distinct privilege of getting a chance to work on policy with a broad-based group of agencies and organizations throughout the state to work on things like food, farm, and hunger initiatives, as we were discussing today. So I really want to say thanks also to the Interfaith Hunger Coalition for the invitation and for putting this meeting together so that we can learn about Senate Bill 4. And that's always like the short, right, for the healthy universal school meals for all of our young people. And it is a privilege and an honor to have Senator Michael Padilla and Senator Jaramillo here with us today to talk about that particular initiative and the importance of it, not only for our young ones in the state, but for our schools and families and what it will mean to our communities. So briefly though, as Carlos mentioned, he just asked if I give a short overview of a few other things that were part of this big picture. Having been in this work, like many of you, for me, about 3 decades, this is a building of relationships. It's a building of partnerships. It's a building of trust in the state to really invest not only in hunger in our state, but the solutions, some of the things that really will deepen the work and provide more opportunities for not only people to access healthy, affordable, and culturally significant foods, and at the same time really build out and expand our farming economy, which is very important, of course, both in our rural, tribal, and even urban areas too. So having said that, overarching this legislative session, we've gone from starting these things step by step, like the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program at farmers markets many years ago, WIC and Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Programs, the New Mexico Grown Program, helping to get New Mexico's beautiful farmers and ranchers now fresh fruits and vegetables and meats into schools, senior centers, and early daycare centers. And at the same time, bolstering things like the agriculture workforce, helping young and new people coming into agriculture to learn what that means to have that business and strengthen their own businesses here in New Mexico. There's healthy soils, ways we steward our land and our natural resources so that we can grow food here in New Mexico. And I will paraphrase Secretary Whitty and actually the governor when they shared their thoughts at New Mexico Food and Farms Day at the legislature, that it's so important that we focus on food security for our own here in New Mexico, and that as we build out these programs and expand our opportunity to create economic and socially beneficial programs in New Mexico, we're benefiting everybody. We're keeping the money at home, we're keeping the values here, and we're expanding them as a collective. So having said that, overarching, and Kendall Chavez from the Office of the Governor will speak about this tomorrow, overarching $58 million investment in food, farm, and support for things like hunger programs here in New Mexico in the short term and for the long term as well. And I'll stop with that and start with saying I'm really excited and really honored to get a chance to introduce Senator Michael Padilla and Senator Leo Jaramillo, who carried Senate Bill 4, the Healthy Universal School Meals for All. It is the most comprehensive approach to making sure all of our young people are fed a nutritious, beautiful meal in our schools, and also the investment in our school food service, as well as in some of the underpinnings that will benefit the program in the short term and the long term as well. And I want to give one other thank you to some folks who are not here with us today, but are really a part that are going to help to really make this happen. I want to say thanks to Michael Padilla, who is the director of the Public Education Department's Nutrition and Wellness Bureau. He and his staff and several other organizations, New Mexico Grown Coalition and several others, who are really going to help make this program whole. And they are fully committed to it and care deeply about it, and have been working in this work for a long time. So having said that, now to pass the baton to Senator Padilla and Senator Jaramillo, and thank you so much, gentlemen, for being with us and for carrying this amazing bill forward.
Thank you, Pam. Who would you like to go first? I'm happy to start.
That would be great. And you both have the passion in this work, and thank you for holding this torch for so long to make it happen. So yes, please, Senator Padilla.
Thank you very much, Carlos. Thank you, Pam. Thank you to everyone that's on the call. I have to say that I've done a lot of work in my 11 years in the Senate with the Interfaith organization in my area, Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, the integrated group there, on a number of subjects related to education, also statewide initiatives related to bringing high-speed broadband internet across the state. It's one of my passions and one of my major swim lanes in the legislature also. Again, this convening of folks made a huge difference in making this happen. I will say that I want to take you on just a brief journey to how we got to where we are today, in my opinion. First and foremost, Interfaith and other groups like yours were doing this work long before I came along into the legislature. So I want to thank you for continuing to carry that message. I really feel confident that your work and your advocacy made a huge difference in helping legislators from all over New Mexico listen to me, listen to Senator Jaramillo, listen to the governor, listen to Kendall Chavez, listen to others to make sure that this was done. I want to take you again, like I said, on a brief, journey and say that, I grew up, my sisters and I and my brother grew up in extreme poverty here in New Mexico. And when I say extreme poverty, we literally, one of us worked in a restaurant to make sure we had some food. I happened to be the youngest. I was very lucky that way. Grew up in foster homes all over New Mexico. Also for those of you who know the Albuquerque, central New Mexico area, we used to have a home called the All Faiths Receiving Home for Homeless Children. And so we lived there. I lived there for about 2 years as a child. And then when I got into high school, my sisters took me in because they were all older and they were adults already. And thankfully that happened. But it was always my passion to do something for the community. And in the time I've been in the legislature, I've been trying to do what I call the big three. Every time we get something done, we put another list, something else on the big three list. So in 2017, working with a group called New Mexico Appleseed, and I think that they're on tonight with us as well. I just want to say that, we came forward with a bill that year called the Hunger-Free Students Bill of Rights. And that legislation was basically to affirm for every child that they are valuable, that they mean something, and that they shouldn't be treated differently when they're in the lunchroom. They should be able to develop socially and emotionally like any other child in that school. And when they go to lunch, they shouldn't be shamed and they shouldn't be made to feel less. They should have the time as a child. It's not their fault whether they could pay for their lunch or not. Whatever's going on at home or whatever the deal is there, that's what it is. So bottom line, we passed that bill that year. Literally goes around the world. I have probably given 4,000 interviews, in news outlets all over the world, literally. We touched a nerve. We didn't even know we were doing it. Also working with about 36 or 37 different state legislatures to pass that bill. Get that done. We get that bill signed. It begins to be implemented over the past couple of years from 2017 to present. And fast forward to 2023. And, many people got together and said, and it was a challenge that I had back in 2017 in passing that bill, that just because we're providing a lunch doesn't mean it's a healthy lunch, because I think we all know that, 82% of the synapses of the brain is formed by the 36th month of life. And if they're not eating healthier at that point, then the likelihood is that they will carry those habits into the future with them. I've dealt with health related issues because I didn't know how to eat healthy or whatever. So I'll be a little quicker because I want to make sure that Senator Jaramillo has some time to speak as well. But fast forward, and I said, well, just because we're giving doesn't mean that it's a healthy lunch. So now we come forward and say, gosh, let's just take the stigma out altogether and provide and change the name of that bill from Hunger-Free Student Bill of Rights to the Healthy Hunger-Free Student Bill of Rights. Let's make sure that every New Mexico child, no matter who you are, where you live, what school you go to, if you're subscribing to the National School Lunch Program, that you will receive a free to the student, not free to the taxpayer, free to the student, a free breakfast and a free lunch. And then let's take it a step further and let's further adequately fund the school districts with additional funding of about, I would say, I think it wound up being 41% for breakfast and 39% for lunch. This is additional funding to the districts to create relationships with local farmers and ranchers so that those districts can buy locally grown fruits, vegetables, meats, poultry, fish, you name it, and get that food to the table as quickly as possible. And so in doing so, what we wind up doing there is providing that extra piece of a healthy, hunger-free student bill of rights. So one of the things that just made total sense to me was, why on earth would we be not focusing on the students' studies? So in passing the bill in 2017, passing the bill in 2023 now, and having it signed by the former governor and this one signed by this governor, we take the focus off the students' stomachs and we place it on their studies, exactly where it should be. And so that when they're in the classroom, think of yourselves. I mean, right after breakfast, right after lunch, if you are hungry, you're going to hear maybe 1 out of every 3 things the teacher's trying to say to you. And so as a result, this bill passed. I feel like we're going to have a 2-year ramp to get this thing implemented. We did provide an additional, I believe it was $21 million. We're going to have to the districts, we're going to give them the opportunity to come forward with a budget that tells us to get them right-sized within the next 2 years to make sure that this is done the right way. So I invited someone who I felt very passionate about in terms of joining me in this legislation, Senator Jaramillo. He has a very similar story to mine. And just the two of us just rolled up our sleeves. We worked with Kendall Chavez in the governor's office and all of the different groups that are on this call right now. and we made this thing happen. So I want to, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for your advocacy and helping get this done, and all the other advocacy that you work on. So thank you, and I'll hand this now, the baton, over to Senator Jaramillo to say a few words.
Thank you so much, Senator Padilla. And so you're going to like hearing this. Since you're our broadband senator, I can't turn my camera on when it's windy in Espanola because it's one or the other. Camera, no audio.
We're working on it.
So I always pitch everyone. I always pitch to Senator Padilla that Rio Arriba County would be the perfect pilot program for him. But Carlos and Pam, thank you so much for having me today. And I want to publicly thank Senator Padilla for bringing me along this journey on Senate Bill 4. He's a true New Mexican who has the heart of the people, and he's somebody that I look up to in the Senate, and somebody that I'm proud to call my friend. So thank you so much, Senator. So as a student who qualified for free school breakfast and lunch in Espanola Public Schools, as a former teacher who witnessed firsthand how hunger affects learning, and as a son of a retired public school cook who took pride in feeding thousands of students, I was so honored to co-sponsor Senate Bill 4. And so I literally danced for joy when the bill passed with that vote of 35-0, because it means so much. You know, I was a school teacher in Belen and saw students who would put food in their pockets to take home to younger siblings because they knew there was nothing to eat when they got home. Heard from students who were worried about what they were going to eat during the weekend because there's no school cafeteria. So helping carry this bill meant something to me because of those stories I witnessed firsthand. And like Senator Padilla and I, we both qualified for free breakfast and lunch in school. And taking away the stigma, right, is what this bill does. Is everybody, and pun intended, has a seat at the table with no questions asked. You know, one of the questions Senator Padilla and I were asked during committee is, what about teenagers who leave campus, who are eating at fast food restaurants and not taking part in this program? Now, my response was, I remember when I was in high school, I would leave campus, but I was too ashamed to say I didn't have money for lunch. So I would either lie and say I was full or that I wasn't hungry, but it was just to be around friends. I think that this bill will keep students in school, eating in their cafeteria, and everyone benefits from this bill. And so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions alongside my good friend, Senator Padilla.
Great. Well, thank you, Senator Padilla and Senator Jaramillo, for actually providing us with a better understanding of what this bill and then the legislation is about and how it's going to support our young ones and our communities, really literally, because if it's helping our kids and our schools, it's helping our families and our communities as well. So, and to build on the conversation and to add to this, we really are excited to also have Daniel Valverde, who's with us today with Appleseed. New Mexico Appleseed is one of the major organizations behind this work, as Senator Padilla mentioned before, really not only guiding, but helping to build everybody's understanding about some of the issues that young people face each day and their families as well. And I just want to say, Senator Padilla and Senator Jaramillo, thank you for sharing your very personal stories that help the rest of us understand and deepen our gratitude, you know, for how all of these things are so meaningful to you. And so, Daniel, I want to thank you for the work you and your colleagues at New Mexico Appleseed do to enlighten everybody and to press on to make these things happen and be partners, strong partners in the work. So tell us a little bit more. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Pam, Carlos. Really appreciate the invite to be here today and talk to everybody here. You know, this has been a long road working in this. Really, this was always a goal for New Mexico Appleseed, was to make sure we could beat every kid. And we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Senator Padilla. He was there with us since 2015, 16, and 17, really working on some of these, and really passing the Hunger-Free Student Bill of Rights was monumental, changing the way we look at school meals here in New Mexico and beyond. He is correct. He got so much praise for it because he worked so hard on something that a lot of people didn't really believe in, and that was eliminating school meal debt for students. It's something that has plagued students here in New Mexico, plagued districts, and it was really a true first step in really working on doing universal school meals. So incredible special things to him, and all his hard work too for doing this. So Senator Padilla, thank you so much. And then also Senator Jaramillo, who just is taking this on as well and really making a huge difference here in New Mexico. So before we ever got here, there was a lot of steps, and Senator Padilla he talked about a little bit of them, and there was a little other steps that kind of get swept under the rug, and that was really due to the work with PED as well. Felix, I see he's on here today, to get there, we really had to take incremental steps so we can make sure that Senator Padilla can hit it out of the park. And that really was starting with eliminating reduced price copays. So right after 2017 in the Hunger-Free Student Bill of Rights, we in 2019 wanted to eliminate the reduced price copays. And there's a small percentage of that. So there's either free, reduced, or full price. And we really looked at, working with public education department to pick out about 13,000 kids that were just in the reduced price copays. And once we did that, the pandemic hit. So that changed everything. We got to see 2 years of what it was like to give every student in New Mexico and the nation free school meals. And it was remarkable what happened. Parents couldn't look back, to be honest. They did once a year for 2 years, they didn't have to do anything with the school meals. It wasn't increasing debts for school districts. And it was truly a blessing in disguise during the pandemic. They were feeding school districts all over New Mexico really stepped in during the hardest of times, and we were feeding kids weekend meals, holiday meals, summer meals, school meals, and giving them multiple meals a day so they can take it on for the week. It was truly something I've never seen in this world, and I've been part of this world for about 15 years so far, and been working in different states on the hunger and food related issues. And so it was truly a blessing in disguise. But with that said, there's still a lot of work to be done in the last couple of years. And so I really want to say really a big thank you to a public education department. They do so much work behind the scenes to making sure that we know the true cost for this, how many kids are eating. They work with the school districts to make sure we're eating well. And everybody from all these nonprofits that we've been working with, like Pam, Roy, just really working to make sure we're all on the same page in the last couple of months. So to get to where we were at was just small increments over probably 6-7 years. And so with that being said, I mean, this is truly a dream for New Mexico Appleseed. This is a dream for New Mexico students and families, and for Senator Padilla to be there since the day one of this stuff is truly remarkable. And every time we have anything dealing with hunger, homelessness, he's the first person we think of because he has been such great help within this world. And right now, I think we're the 6th state, Senator Padilla, I think if that's correct, 7th state.
I believe it's the 7th, yeah.
Which is big. I mean, I got to see what it was like. I was working with Colorado, Hunger Free Colorado, while they're doing this. So the year prior, and got to see, and like Pam said at the beginning of this is the most comprehensive bill that we've seen at any other state, and we set the precedent across the nation, and that's something for us to be really proud of, and for all the advocates who worked so hard is something that is so remarkable. And I just want to always make sure we give kudos to everyone who worked so hard. And so I know we're going to have PED talk here in a second, but I just wanted to make sure that the hard work that they did to make sure we knew what the exact numbers, the price tags, making sure everyone is on board, and then making sure that our senators really hit it out of the park, and to see it just be unanimous vote. I couldn't have dreamed it better in my entire life in the last 5 years. And this is truly living a dream. So I just want to thank everybody who's part of it. I want to thank everyone here today to being listening to our stories. And I just want to thank you for letting me talk for a minute.
Daniel, thanks so much. And you know what, Daniel, I love what you just said. I couldn't have dreamed it better. I'm with you. This is such an amazing opportunity for all of us. And so thanks for giving us some of that background and the landscape and what it takes to get something this large, an initiative this large, to where it's at, and with the leadership that we have here today. So we're talk a little bit more about what does it mean to be the educators in this, the school food service directors, how this program is going to be evaluated and kind of take off or build on some of the things that are already being done as well. Public Education Department, I know Felix, I'm so glad you're with us today. We'll talk a little bit more about how this is not only integrating the structure, but also as Daniel said, and Senator Padilla and Senator Jaramillo, about how we're getting some of the freshest options, healthiest and most nutritious options on the plates. But to do that, this takes the school food service, the schools themselves and the food service directors and their staff who wholeheartedly have taken these programs on. And we're also a real force in supporting this bill and this initiative so that we see these programs building throughout our schools in New Mexico. So I want to introduce you all to Rachel Rogers. Rachel is the food service director with the Mora Independent School District. She's also the next in line to be the president of the New Mexico School Nutrition Association. Rachel and I've had a wonderful opportunity of working together for some years in this work, and really have to say we have a real family with our school food service directors who helped to build these programs and take on some really major challenges without the resources. And so now we have them. And Rachel, tell us a little bit more about how this is going to help us all. Thanks so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Pam. So good evening. I'm Rachel Rogers, the food service director at the Mora Independent School District. Our enrollment is around 450, and we are a CEP district, which means that our students already eat free due to the poverty level. We do have about 87% daily participation for lunch and about 90% daily participation for breakfast. Currently, we do as much scratch cooking as possible, and we are utilizing some New Mexico grown products, and we're also willing to do as much as possible or make any improvements necessary to follow the SB4 guidelines. Because I know there is extra funding there, and I'm excited about that because our school, we are from a small district. Our cafeteria serves 1st through 12th grade students, and it's about 60 years old. So of course, there are some upgrades that are needed and a facelift, and it's very hard to get funding from our district to help with those upgrades that our cafeteria is in need of. So I feel that would be a great help for our district, and we're already doing some of the legwork by doing scratch cooking, utilizing New Mexico grown products, and so I'm excited about that. And I'm also glad the funding that attached to the SB4 will make it easier to provide nutritious, healthy meals for our students by purchasing from our local farmers, the ranchers. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And much thanks to our senators that sponsored this bill. I've been a part of New Mexico School Nutrition Association for about 12 years, and universal free meals has always been on the back burner, and we've always pushed for it, every legislation, and of course it had not passed. And this year they championed this by sponsoring it and getting it passed. So we're excited. We're excited to participate with and get SB4 going. So thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Thanks so much. And actually also for sharing a little bit more about how this works with the work that you're doing in the sense of integrating these programs into the school districts. So in that funding, so a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, Senator Padilla and Senator Jaramillo, there was approximately $22.5 million that goes more directly to the school meals and to support food service. But as Rachel just mentioned, there's an additional $20 million for what we call infrastructure. As Rachel said, some of our schools don't have either updated or the kind of equipment that it takes to do scratch cooking. So that 20 million is going to be really important for our schools to be able to buy either more refrigeration, new stoves, ovens, things to cook local meat in, some of the kinds of tools that are needed to work with fresh produce instead of cans and frozen. And again, thank you, Rachel, and to all of your School Nutrition Association members for really wanting this to happen and to take on the challenge, right? So beyond and the broader thought around that, I want to welcome Yvonne Garcia, who has served as Principal and Associate Superintendent at Albuquerque Public Schools. So Rachel shared with us a little bit about what it means to be a smaller rural school, and yet so important to the community. And Yvonne, Ms. Garcia, actually is the assistant superintendent of the largest school district in New Mexico as well. So, and Sandy Kemp, their food service director, has been absolutely championing and buying local for the school district for quite a long time. And Yvonne, thanks so much for being with us and sharing a little bit more about what this means to you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I am a retired educator. This is my first year in retirement, but I have been a building principal. Most of my career was a building principal and then central office. And it's real interesting to see that when you have a student come to you, and we as principals and as teachers say, okay, come to us, ready to learn, ready to work, because we want to espouse all of this education on you. And lo and behold, they're hungry. And hierarchy of needs, we've got to fill that first need first. And so that is one of those essentials that absolutely has to happen. And Albuquerque Public Schools is a humongous school district with various, and I've worked in all parts of our city, and it's just very interesting to watch the different dynamics. So when we talk about 100% free and reduced lunch, and some of the schools that already were, all of the students received free and reduced lunch, what I am hopeful is that with some of the comprehensiveness that you all talked about and things that you added to the bill, it also makes them want to be in the cafeteria even more. And that because we have to have them come to us with healthy bodies and healthy brains. I worked in several parts of the community where there may be 20% of our students who need lunch. There may be 30%, there may be a little bit higher, but not enough to provide for the whole school. And there's that stigma that both Senator Padilla and Jaramillo spoke about, where they're too embarrassed to either fill out the forms or to go get the lunch because their buddies are doing something different. But if that lunch is provided for all of the students, and it's a lunch that they want to be there, there's fresh vegetables, there's fresh fruit, which, as you know, Sandy Kemp has bent over backwards to really increase that in our schools, they will have the opportunity for a healthy meal. And for so many of our students, that breakfast and lunch are the only healthy meals that they get. I just wanted to reiterate what Mr. Valverde said about the pandemic, where we were able to feed people and give them bags to go on the weekend. So many of our schools have volunteer pantries in order to do that because our families need it. So that could be a next step of you guys. I do think that the addition of the culturally significant is going to spark some interest. Our cafeterias and our building principals, it's going to take some rethinking about the way we've done business, not in a bad way, but that's okay. But that culturally significant makes a difference for all of our different students who come to us, so that they feel welcome and they don't feel like they're always eating something that they're not familiar with. So I'm really excited about that. I'm also very thankful for this group as you all were talking and as you were talking about the different parts of people who come together. From my experience, we always think about the cafeteria workers, the bakers, the cookers, the food service workers who put the food out, and the people who clean it up and all of that kind of stuff. And you forget that there's a whole nother faction of people. And so I'm very thankful that all of us have come together as a community in order to make this happen. So I just wanted to reiterate about the stigma and about how the healthy brains will make a huge difference, not only in classroom performance and academic performance, but I also think in behavior. And I think in the way kids are, they won't be quite as irritable. They will be able to develop different kinds of relationships that they may not have been accustomed to. So that's all.
Thanks, Yvonne. Thanks so much for sharing what it means to be doing this work from your perspective too. And a couple of things. One, you mentioned the culturally significant foods. What's really exciting is that a lot of our schools are really delving into that. And we have what's called the approved supplier list from our farmers and our ranchers. And we are now seeing more foods that are really about community, tribally significant foods as well. And really appreciate the school food service directors and their staff incorporating those into the menus and into the nutrition programs there at schools. One other thing too that's going hand in hand with this work, school gardens. Many schools and those like in Albuquerque where Yvonne are at are building out gardens so that we are now doing that crossover, integrating education, experiential learning during school time as it relates to the curriculum, to also what's in the cafeteria and on the plate. So all these things are building blocks to really create the most comprehensive program. As Daniel said earlier, that we have in the United States. New Mexico is a lead. So with that, as we said before, this doesn't happen without the agency that actually has to implement the program, and that's the New Mexico Public Education Department. And I want to thank Felix Griego for being with us today from the Nutrition and Wellness Bureau. He and his colleague, Michael Chavez, lead this work along with a small crew of staff who are really mighty. And what I will reiterate is how much Felix and Michael and his team care deeply about this program. They know it's going to take a while. And I want to thank you again, Felix, for your commitment to this work, and share a little bit more about what you think is going to happen from your perspective, please.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Felix Griego. I'm the Deputy Director for Student Success and Wellness Bureau. We administer the National School Lunch Program for the Public Education Department. So a lot has been said thus far as what the bill means and some of the criteria within the bill that not only means that we're going to be feeding all students for free, but kind of some of the caveats that us as a state agency are going to implement and kind of enforce to ensure, a lot of the things that you all mentioned, on this call does occur. The good thing about kind of, one thing that we thought is the National School Lunch Program was primarily a federally funded program, right? And so our free students got free meals, but our reduced and paid students, we addressed the reduced students with the reduced student copay bill in 2020, but Senator Padilla, Senator Jaramillo, and all the partners got together, and we went ahead and took the big fight to legislation and along with our partners at the governor's office, and got the bill passed. And so what we are going to do here as a state agency, again, federally funds, it looks like about 200 million from the federal side. Now, we threw out it's approximately 59 million dollars that the state decided to say, we're going to take a stance on hunger in the nation and in our state and go ahead and fund the districts, the additional monies that the federal funds wouldn't cover, so that all students eat for free, not only are free, but as well as our reduced, as well as our paid students. So that stigma, it will no longer be there. from our primary focus is the state to feed all students, and ensure that all our students are prepared, to go ahead and get in that classroom and be successful in that classroom. And by passing this bill, we feel that we will be increasing participation, and there'll be a lot more successful students in the classroom. And that's what our vision is. What we are doing as a state agency is there's a lot to do now. We passed the bill. Now we really got to implement everything that we put into the bill. So currently, internally, we're working with the governor's office, our constituents, our school food authorities, to kind of get some of their feedback and input on kind of what this looks like. We do have to generate rule and statute. Those will be the rules that will guide the implementation of the program to ensure that, we are utilizing state and federal tax dollar money. So we want to ensure that, what is in that bill is actually happening. The good thing is Senator Padilla, Senator Jaramillo, and feedback from their colleagues in legislation. We're giving the districts a couple of years to implement this. And what it does for us as a state agency is give us a little bit of time to go ahead and take those small chunks and small steps to ensure that all this happens. And that way everyone is successful and everybody has the technical assistance, not only from the state agency, but individuals like yourself to go ahead and provide that support for our school food authorities, our schools and districts. Again, our end, we're going to go ahead and reimburse the districts. We reimburse the districts on a monthly basis with federal funds. The state funds will flow out through the school food authorities, similar to what the federal funds go out on a monthly basis. We will implement those rules. And then what we're doing now is we're kind of building up our staff right now. We have about 3 or 4 positions that we are going to create to go ahead and get this program implemented. And it's going to be kind of a state side along with the federal side within our bureau. So it's quite a bit of work that we have in front of us on our end, but we're invested to go ahead and utilize those funds and get the program running. And so there's a lot that's coming on. Another caveat that we are still going to implement is the New Mexico Grown. Historically, we had program started with about 200,000. It went up to 400,000. And this last year, we were back up to 1.8 million or 1.2 million for school food authorities to purchase New Mexico locally grown products. And that could be anywhere from, produce to meat, to nuts, to honey, to any of those type of fresh products and items, so that these students can see some of those fresh items on their plate and get healthy, nutritious meals. And so this year we got about 2 million, which is a significant increase. It's about 800,000. So there's going to be a lot of money that goes back not only to our economy, but with our farmers, and then getting those healthy, nutritious, culturally meals to our students. And so all in all, I think it's a win-win for our students. We do want to invest in our students. We want to invest in our community. And I think with Senate Bill 4, in collaboration with our senators that are on this call, governor's office, and all of our partners here, we're able to go ahead and implement this program throughout the state. But that's pretty much the nuts and bolts on that. We're doing a lot of training with our school food authorities so we can get them prepared for that. As far as the national school lunch program, we still have some USDA regulations in place. There'll still be some applications and collections and things of that nature, but it will streamline the program, and we're going to get a lot of funding out to the school food authorities for infrastructure and things of that nature. So pretty proud of the bill, and thank you all for supporting the bill, and look forward to working with you all throughout the next couple of years.
Felix, thanks so much to you and your team for really holding this vessel and making sure that it moves forward in a way that's going to really make it work here in New Mexico. And to your point, I also, to your point about the New Mexico Grown, I believe 67 of our 89 school food authorities or school districts applied for that funding this year, that $2 million to be able to get New Mexico Grown in the schools. And that was, I think, a jump from about 57, 59 school districts last year. So really exciting to see the growth in this program, and also really the commitment. So
definitely.
Again, thanks so much.
One thing with that, Pam, is, it is tied to how many lunches that are served in prior years. And so that's really going to incentivize our school food authorities to go ahead and increase that participation for our students, right? And so because they'll get an additional funding for those New Mexico grown funds, the more meals they serve in. So I think everything aligns together and it's going to work well.
Yeah, well, and the other thing also that Felix and his team have really encouraged, along with the School Nutrition Association, is that farmers are paid an equitable price for their product. So this isn't about trying to actually make it the lowest price. It's really about the real price, and that's important to our local economy, building out our local economy, and making sure everybody wins, right? That everybody benefits from this program and those other programs, the food initiative programs that we mentioned before. So having said that, we've got about 15 minutes left, 10 to 15 minutes. Wanted to make sure that we've got a moment to actually answer some questions, and I expect you all have some. So Carlos, I think I hand it off to you now. Thanks.
Thank you, Pam. Just a couple of things on the questions again. If you have a question you want to ask it in person, please use the reaction to raise your hand, or write your question in the chat. I'll be watching for those. And also, please make sure you say to whom your question is being directed. But let me bring in a couple of people here who I think might have questions. They actually work with food distribution in the Downtown Collaborative. I just want to pass it on to Andy Brayman and Melanie Lewis. I think they had some questions way back. Do you want to ask your questions, Melanie and Andy?
Hello. I want to thank you both for the passing of this bill too, because having worked in schools, both of us, we've certainly seen the food that's been there and seen the waste, and it's really concerning. And I know I hadn't wanted to eat much of what was there. So I'm really excited about this personally for the kids and for myself as a school employee. My question is, right now we see so much waste from leftover breakfast and lunch. It's so disheartening. And I hear, there'll be a 2-year rollout, but I'm really concerned about how we can encourage the students to try new things. Hopefully, like the smells and just the culture will change, like the culturally relevant foods that will really help. If we do have waste, I did see in the bill that there'll be shared tables and we'll be able to get the food to other agencies. And right now we really can't do that, but because we're not supposed to, for one, but also because we don't have the infrastructure in the school to get it to another place. And those other places where we would probably want to take it, like a shelter or something, they don't have staff to come and get the food either. So that is just something like for example, there's so much milk that is thrown away just every single day. So just a detail and thinking about like, how do we, of course we're for this, but how do we negotiate around some of those, like how do we prevent the waste, and how can APS help us as community school coordinators to make this bill successful?
So if it's all right, Carlos, I'll just jump in for a sec.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so I think one of the things you heard from PED, from Felix, and you've heard from myself and others is we did put together a 2-year implementation. We originally had the bill up and running in 1 year. And we thought by taking the feedback from the food services directors and others that we should move the implementation to a 24-month implementation. So there's going to be time for not only equipping scratch kitchens, but also requesting additional machinery, equipment, storage, etc., for this very purpose of storing and preparing and transporting, if that's the case. I think that's one thing that will help in this area. The second thing is when the relationships that are created between the farmers and the ranchers and the food producers, some of the fresh food producers, it'll sort of be, I know that there's a couple of districts that have already done a two-way exchange and reduced cost for what they buy from the farmers and ranchers. So they can buy the food that could actually be consumed, like say milk as an example, by various, folks or various things on their farms or animals that are in their farms and what have you. So that's a second thing. And then the third thing is, I think that you're going to find that it'll take, I hope it doesn't take a full decade, but it'll take a period of time where the child from the earliest opportunity is receiving this healthier food and vegetables, meats, etc. So therefore they will be more apt to consume in that, and from that standpoint. There was a lot of debate, and we can't pretend like it didn't happen. There was, and you may want to ask, Kendall Chappes about this tomorrow. She might be able to provide some additional insight. But where do we put the lunch? I'm sorry, where do we, scratch that. Where do we put the recess period for the younger children? Do we put it before or after? I am a fan of putting the recess before, and playtime before the breakfast, if you're able to get to school early enough, and playtime and exercise time before the lunch. That will greatly help with the consumption of the food once they go into the lunchroom or the breakfast room following the exercise period. So we removed that from the bill because we wanted to give districts the autonomy to make those decisions themselves. But I think that over time, we're going to strongly push that one along, because that will create additional consumption of the food and reduce waste.
Thank you, Senator Padilla. Any other questions from anyone else? Please raise your hands.
I have a hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Mary.
Okay, the piece that I don't hear here is asking the students what they want. You've got to involve the kids. I would suggest that you have student reps from every school to be involved in the menu planning, and that you do surveys of the kids to see what they want, what they like, so at least they feel like their voices are being heard. I can tell you from being involved in a summer program with food service, they will not eat whole wheat tortillas, and you just might as well take that off the menu. Now, I think the kids can understand, especially when they're reps, they can understand some of the basic nutrition issues, and that's a good place to involve them in this discussion and the standards that you have to meet. But please include the kids in this program as far as their input. I think it's a great mistake to just do it all top down.
I think that's an excellent suggestion, Mary. Thank you. This is Senator Padilla. I think it's you're right on when you say that. Thank you.
And Mary, I just wanted to add one more thing. Working with a lot of food service directors all across the state, I can tell you that it actually is happening quite frequently. They've been doing really good jobs at bringing kids into the decision process, doing surveys, taste menus, taste testing to do new things to the menus. I've been very encouraged in the last couple of years by a lot of food service directors. Completely unique pathways to doing this, but you're right. This is something that more people should be doing, and that's something that we really encourage in the future as well.
Hey, Carlos, can I add one more to my comment?
Yes, please. And then I have a question from Judy Messel.
I would just add two things. One is Mary, again, your comments are right on. Thank you, Daniel, for your comments as well. The other thing is about putting the exercise period before the meal time. It actually lends itself to more exercise, is the data that I've seen, because they're not as lethargic, because they're the one, if they ate, or didn't eat as much or didn't know how much they could consume, then they're more lethargic when they go to exercise to the recess time after. So that's one thing. The other one is I just wanted to add that part. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Padilla. Judy Messel asks if there might be a program to let culinary students have internships to work in new school scratch kitchens, and are there plans to have these kinds of help in the kitchens?
I think we're going to see all sorts of things happen with the explosion of this program, and that's all I'll say about that. I don't know, Senator Hadami or somebody else wants to say something.
the only thing I'll mention is that when it comes to school gardens, culinary arts work in all different areas, not only in our food services areas, but there are lots of work opportunities for students. And so the school to careers and all of those kind of things are ongoing and growing. So it's really exciting to see.
And good to see you, Yvonne. I haven't seen you in a while. Thank you.
Good to
You
see
used to
you. It's
lead the
because
Rio
I'm
Grande
retired.
Carlos,
Pam,
I have a couple of comments with regards to some of the questions that were discussed so far. If that's okay?
yeah, please go ahead, Felix.
Sounds good. So a couple of things to address as far as the food waste. We're looking to work again, partnership with the governor's office in Kendall and things of that nature. But we are working to try and build some of those partnerships with our food depots and food banks and things of that nature to go ahead and get some of those items such as milk, non-perishable items to those districts and see what those logistics look like. So we are working on that. One thing that we do, back to Mary's question, is we are looking at getting not only school food authority directors, food service directors, but also teachers, educators, as well as students input as far as their menus. Daniel did allude to a lot of the districts that are currently doing that. Our vision is for all of our school food authorities that are participating in a national school lunch program, build those types of committees so they do have some of that say so and do have some of those surveys, because nobody wants to be feeding students items that they're not going to be eating, such as your wheat tortillas. Some of those caveats, USDS, some regulations. So we're going to be working. We're going to be working to try and hire some individuals like dietetics, dietitians, chefs, things of that nature to go ahead and provide that technical assistance for our districts to go ahead and be able to build those scratch menus and provide those items that our students are really going to be eating. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be happening. And again, we got to get those FTEs or those staff in place so we can go ahead and get that. But the ball is rolling on our end, and we're working diligently with the governor's office and individuals that are on this call to try and implement this program so it is successful and it does have that big picture that we're all looking into, that we're discussing today. So just a couple of things. Thank you.
Pam had a couple of comments. Would you, and then I'll turn it over to Terry. Could you say your comments out loud, Pam?
Sure, just a quick one. I want to thank you for bringing up the school food waste and that this bill has a real precedence in there to help schools think about school waste as initiatives. So some resources there for that. And just wanted to give you the example, Santa Fe Public Schools, actually their school food waste is actually picked up by Reunity Resources Farm that's based here in Santa Fe. And they actually create compost that they donate, they use on their farm, and that they sell as well to the community. And the second thing was some really great programs, support programs in the state food corps and AmeriCorps place people in communities for a year at a time, sometimes 2 years at a time, to work directly with schools and community members to build out things like school gardens and curriculum, along with things like Kids Cook, kids cooking with kids, things like that. And then there's also some great resources. Some of our school districts have applied for the USDA Farm to School grant, the grant program that has actually helped to lift up a lot of these programs and helped us get where we're at. So just a few resources there.
Thank you, Pam. And I think Terry Dunbar had a question. Did
Yeah.
you, Terry?
I do. A comment and a question. First of all, I wanted to support what Yvonne was saying about the effect of this bill on students. In terms of social emotional learning, which more and more educators are coming to understand is so important in keeping kids in school. This is the culturally appropriate, culturally significant foods are going to help. And just getting them into hanging out with the other kids in the cafeteria is so important, especially kids that are, for one reason or another, on the edge, on the outside. Special ed students, sexual orientation, for whatever reason, they don't feel like they're part of the gang. getting them there and socializing in the cafeteria. This is where society mixes as young people. So I think it's going to have an effect. I think it's going to have a positive effect, and I think it's going to keep more kids in school, keep those at-risk kids from dropping out to some extent. So my question would be to those that have crafted this bill, as you roll it out over the next year or two, I know you're going to evaluate the logistics of it, but I wonder if anyone's going to be evaluating the effect on students, collecting data, even if it's just comments and especially including student data, student input. I think there is a tie-in here, and I would like to see what the effect is.
Well, I would just jump in and say, yes, that is absolutely should be a part of this process. I encourage the PED folk to encourage the districts to do that. You did give me a good flag there to probably personally ask the school districts to do some of this. And so I will take that as a charge on my end to follow up with all 89 school districts, charter schools, et cetera, and encourage them to do that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And to elaborate a little bit there, Mr. Dunbar, here on the PED side, we are a data-driven program, and we do want to see what the cause and effect on a lot of this implementation, primarily, what the participation rates look like, what the success of the students are, that, what that social emotional data looks like that you did elaborate to. And so, throughout this process, we're going to be looking at the various aspects of the bill and to try and get some feedback, not only from our school food authorities, but from our students. I know last year, in preparation for this bill, we did have some districts that did some surveys as far as the meal quality and what the students wanted and what the impacts were on the National School Lunch Program and the things that they're eating. And you'd be surprised some of the stuff we get and we hear back. And so, our goal is to go ahead and get that feedback and make some changes, right? We're going to be looking at how the program's, performing throughout the next few years and getting that feedback from our students, because ultimately those are the individuals that are eating the meals on a daily basis.
Thank you. I think we have to close in respect of all your time. I do want to say a special thank to all our guests, both Senator Padilla and Senator Jaramillo, Daniel Valverde from New Mexico Appleseed, our two educators, Yvonne Garcia and Rachel Rogers, and Felix Griego from the Public Education Department. Before we close, I want to put Sarah Robbins on the spot and ask her to take a minute or two to tell us about Kids Cook. Would you do that, Sarah?
Sure, you caught me doing dishes. So Kids Cook is a local, so we're in the Albuquerque area. We're in about 14 schools, and we do culturally relevant. So right now we're cooking from Italy. This year we've cooked from all around the world. Food, hands-on food preparation. We talk about nutrition. We do some physical activity, and really just doing all of this work in Title I schools. And the feedback that we really get from parents and kids is that we're introducing them to foods that maybe they've never tried before. And so they're willing to spend their SNAP benefits and do other things when they go to the grocery store and use our recipes. So I think that's what really motivates us to do the work that we do, because families see the value of the education that they're getting in a classroom for kids, because it's not only helping them to see new and different foods that their kids will like that they might not have actually tried at home, but they'll see them try at school. So that's really cool. But we're also giving kids a hands-on experience in the classroom, learning about English, so reading, math, science, and those other things in different ways than they get in their classroom too. That's kind of us in a nutshell. So I hope you guys can come out and come to our office next month, and we'll get to cook together.
May 18th at noon.
May 18th.
Thank you so much, everyone. I thank you for your time, and we enjoyed this conversation, and this recording will be sent out to you as soon as we can. Thank you so much.
Thank you.